Hello, everybody. The few people watching, thank you so much for tuning in to the test stream of how Haven does it, or how Haven did it. Does this light make me look really washed out? I guess that's my first question. Anybody who's watching, thank you so much for helping me out with this. And if you could provide some feedback to me on the sound quality, video quality, etc., that would be greatly appreciative since I am just starting to get into this. And this has been a seriously stark learning curve on learning how to Twitch stream, not having to use it when you're playing video games, which is what it was originally designed for. So, please bear with me, and if you can offer feedback, I'd be greatly appreciative of it. You can either do that to me through multiple social medias or through my email at haventhehare@gmail.com. This will be a show basically once a week on Tuesdays where I'm going to recap some of the games that I'm playing. Currently 2 campaigns that I am running of D&D 5th edition, and possibly delving into a Rifts campaign that I am also playing in every other week as time goes by. So, without further ado, we're going to start this particular show. I'm going to focus on the homebrew campaign that I started up about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, that we had to put on hiatus for a short time due to one of my members, one of the party members, flying across the ocean and leaving us to go to another country where she went to school. And we ended up picking it back up recently. About 6 sessions ago, we started off Chapter 2 of our campaign, and the Wandering Few. And so I'm going to focus on the Wandering Few, and first I'm going to recap the story of where we're at. If you'd like more background on this, there's other ones on YouTube already that gives you the first couple of sessions, and then we'll go into some of the background behind the DM screen of what I did and how I did it, and kind of give her some more feedback, specifically kind of I'm going to try and focus on at least one DM tip, shall we say, that I'm going to pull out of that session or group of sessions. Right now I want to talk about what happened across the course of about 2 sessions, and so let's pick up where our adventurers left off. They had just defeated a spirit troll and come across a turtle druid that they had helped save named Ping. And they have made their way now, flying on their commandeered magic carpet, back to Bereswell Point, the capital city of the Kingdom of Rattan, and more specifically, their own keep on the outskirts of the city, to recap, to regroup, and to look over some of the notes that they had found in the laboratory that they had just raided deep within the timberland, or the rotting timberland that they'd come across in the manor house laboratory they'd found. Upon getting back to Bereswell Point, or specifically to their hilltop keep at Bereswell Point, they unloaded, called some of their compatriots over to help unload and to go searching through it. They called over their blacksmith to see if he had any insight into some of the notes, and they decided that they were going to break off a little bit. A couple of the members that were a little more worse for wear, specifically Lore and Angie, decided they were going to go and immediately go take a rest, while the rest of the party delayed that rest a little bit to get right into those notes that they had, the thousands of pages of notes that they had found in the laboratory. Searching through the notes, or actually, I take that back. They had just unloaded, and as they're unloading, the sending stone that Salona had found in the office of the laboratory starts to tingle a little bit, telling her, or at least Remy tells her, that's what it does when you're about to receive a message, or it's waiting for you to receive the message. So they powwow a little bit, and they decide that they're all going to touch the stone at once, so they all can hopefully hear the message, except for KU. The rest of the party decides to tell KU she's not allowed to touch the stone because she automatically wants to reply back to whoever is on the other end of this stone that they found in this slaughterhouse laboratory. And the rest of the party has cut her off from that idea, and so she will not be listening in. But they all reach in, and as they touch the stone, where's my cursor? Technology. As they touch the stone, this is what they hear.
Stitch, do you have any word on the experiments? I haven't had an update in a week. Tell me we are ready to move forward.
So a voice, a female voice, a very pleasant female voice, but obviously a little angry and a little perturbed, comes across. They're all taken aback, and they immediately stub the stone to not accidentally respond to it and divulge this information. They think about, they don't know who Stitch was. They make an assumption. Maybe it was the halfling that ran off in the fight at the inside of the laboratory. They talk about it for a few minutes, and then they don't know how they're going to respond. They want more information before they respond. So they proceed to then go digging deeper and deeper into the notes that they found within the laboratory. Within those, they come across the fact that these are experiments where whoever was studying necromancy and mechanicals and the ways that he might be able to bond undead flesh to metal and what metals would work best. Some failed experiments in steel and silver and gold, but then maybe that adamantium seems to bond well, maybe because of its magical properties or its innate magical properties. Still to be tested. They also glean that the one person that is pushing, or at least working with whoever this mad scientist was, is named Unkek. At this point, I think it was Ku, if I'm not mistaken, that reaches back into her history and pulls out that Unkek was a lich that was part of a war 100 years ago that kind of consumed the countryside, or the entire continent, including both of these great nations, the Kingdom of Rattan and the Ungog Empire. It's about all they're able to ascertain from their notes and their quick sorting of them. They decide that they really do need more research and they need to have more time with the notes. They send message to Lord Thomas, who is the ruler of Rattan, that they will meet with him shortly. They have found more information since he was the one who sent them on this mission, and they will meet up in the morning. They all catch their long rests, heal up, and get back those much-needed spell energy and mystical energies, and make their way to the main capital where they meet up with the Empire. No, who was it first they meant to? Anyway, they run into a couple of guards I wanted to say first, but eventually they do find their way into the main courtyard of the gardens within the castle at Bereswell Point. In this area, there's a couple of old gentlemen, long kind of wizardry robes, definitely look very scholarly, and Lord Thomas. They start pulling out the documentation. The older gentlemen are introduced as some scholars, but they start talking about what they'd already found. And as soon as the party mentions the name Unkek to Lord Thomas, he freezes up a little bit and immediately dismisses the gentlemen that were there. A little offhanded. They then proceed. They are then taken by Lord Thomas, and to follow him, they grab all the notes, they follow him through the castle, deep into the bowels of the castle, and they come to this large, huge door, and where he stops and turns and he says, "I'm trusting you. You must not let anybody else know who else is residing in this castle." The party readily agrees, a little bit mystified by this, and they're led into this big, huge, library-like chamber with a domed ceiling and vaulted windows, but also filled with wall-to-wall bookcases and shelves and tables and every magical item library picture you've ever seen of the research wizard with scrolls and books and candles everywhere. That is what they just walked into, this huge room. And in the very back of the room, hunched over, this mass turns to them and starts charging towards them, knocking a table and books over. And Thomas raises his hand and says, "Chumley, no. They're friends." Okay. He stops. And the expression stops from being this dumbfounded to a bit more refined. And he pulls out a little pair of spectacles and sticks them on and goes, "Friends?" He's introduced that this is a scholarly friend, one of the last surviving members that, along with Lord Thomas, 100 years ago had actually fought Unkek. Not much else is given, other than he asks to see all of the notes. He casts an arcane spell, and suddenly you see this large, ogre-like creature is just whipping through the pages as fast as he can. Papers are flying, and he's just slowly going over them and over them and over them. And at this point, Lord Thomas turns and says, "I need you, while he is researching the notes, I want you to go to the library. I need you to collect 5 tomes for me." And he gives them a list. These 5 tomes are Driving into the Darkness, Blood at the Free, Nations of the Sky, and The Devils of Medicine. These books are located inside of the library. They're very important. They need to be gotten now. They make sense with the notes and the name. So the party then goes to the master library as part of the castle. Now, this library is on the eastern part of this castle, and it is half in the castle and half open to the public. It is a large public library open to the people of, well, actually to everybody in the kingdom to come. It's a free library. They find the leader of the library, Steen, a librarian, hunched over his books, and as soon as he approaches, he immediately perks up and says, "Can I help you? Can I help you?" And they explain what they need and the books that they need, and he goes very grave. "Oh, yes." And he races over and starts pointing off into the various bookcases and just expects the party to go where he goes. He says, "That way, third shelf from the top, the sixth bookcase, middle of the rack." And then he runs off to the next one and he points up, "Upstairs, third bookcase, titled J, halfway down, only book on the shelf." And he just races around. Eventually the party kind of catches up with what he's doing and they run off following his directions. And eventually they find all the books except for Salona. Now Salona, while the rest of the party had gone to the library, snuck away, decided she was going to go meet up with some of her underworld contacts. I will take this note and I will be putting some info cards below about the characters as we do them. But just Salona's a rogue and she's going off to talk to some of her contacts within the city. So the other four characters run around of Lore and KU and Angie and Remy are running around with the librarian grabbing the books. But they're not there. And they search and they look around and they're trying to find them. And they eventually come back to the center of the library, this big, wagon wheel style library, back to the center, and they're screaming down like, "We can't find them." And the librarian can't find his too, even though he knows it should have been there. And he comes back and goes, "Oh, this is bad." And then he got thinking. I was like, "Right, I know. That young one. There was a young lady. She was here. Very plain. Very, very drab. She worked for the castle. She was here. She was in these sections. She didn't ask for the books, but she searched the library. She spent many a time. She would know. She was the last one near these books. We should find her. Ellen, talk to Ellen, the city manager. She would know. She worked for the city manager." And the party taking this information goes, "Oh, okay." And they split off again. Now, splitting the party three ways. Salona is off meeting up with her contacts. We have, I'm going to make sure I get this right, Remy and Lore head back to Lord Thomas and to Chumley's chamber to inform him that the books are missing. And that leaves Angie and KU to go back and see Ellen, the city manager. A wonderful gnomish woman who's very good with numbers and takes care of the daily runnings of the kingdom, and specifically of Bereswell Point. Skip over. We are now going to run over to Salona. Now, Salona eventually makes her way deep into the city, and after reading some of the Thieves' Cant and talking to the right people, she ends up finding the base of operations for the Undercity of Bereswell. This is a hidden underground casino run by a very elegantly dressed elf by the name of Voss. And Voss is very laid back, very suave, and even though she forces her way through, he never seems to lose his cool. He's flanked on either side by two dragonborn bodyguards in very fine dress. She steps forward into his presence inside of this casino after saying that she's here to meet with him. He motions her, she sits down. They have a conversation about her past, and actually he brings up the fact to have Mariana's apprentice show up in his casino is very interesting, and pray tell, what is her business? Salona lets him know that she is there and wondering if she's on official business, but she needs to know if there's anybody else operating in the castle. He thinks about it, he says offhand, no, there should not be. But why do you ask? And she says there's been some books stolen from the library. It's books, you say? Well, I don't think anybody's silly enough to take credit for a theft in the castle, breaking the contract we have with the crown, but we shall see. Guido, will you please go and check on if anybody has taken credit for any thefts of the castle, specifically books? And Guido marches off. They talk again over a cheese plate, over a few things. Salona's very questioning, doesn't actually say anything to him, doesn't give away anything. He's probing, but he too is not giving away too much. They're kind of at a stalemate of it. They can trust each other, but just barely. Like, they know they're not lying to each other, but not giving away a lot of information. Eventually, Guido comes back and says, nobody has taken credit for anything in the castle. The contract remains. So he turns back to Sloane and says, no, we have nothing has been taken, at least officially within the guild and taken credit for. So I'm afraid we don't have much to offer you. She thanks him for his time and bids him a farewell and heads back to the castle. Now this is going to take her about 30 minutes to get back to the castle from where she is deep within this large city of Bereswell Point. Now let's flash forward over to where we have Remy and Lore going back into Chumley's chambers. They knock, they enter, they inform Lord Thomas that the books are missing. And Lord Thomas immediately gets very grave. But as they walk in, they notice that the ogre in the back is just hunched over, completely exhausted. The notes that they had brought are kind of spread around, and Thomas was kind of in the midst of picking them up and sorting them back up again. He said, this is very bad. Chumley tells me that all of these notes basically akin to the fact that they're trying to meld metal and undead flesh to make constructs that are harder to kill and kind of a mixture between man and machine, but not really man, but undead men and undead creatures. There's talks of using multiple styles of creatures and making hybrids, importing abilities from one or the other. There's one experiment where apparently a troll's heart was implanted into another creature to try and give it its regeneration abilities. To this point, actually, they confirmed this because they had come across a constrictor snake that had that ability of regeneration and being undead. So this is all very, very bad. It seems that not only is Zunkeck up to her old tricks again from these notes, but she's expanded her ideas. She's now trying to find ways to build better undead for her to control, to try and take over the world, the continent at least Rattan and the Empire. They being told that the books are missing, he lets the information flow that these 5 books were part of a set that hidden within these books were the stories and the tales of the War of the Dead, the war 100 years ago against Zunkeck. But they also had secret ciphers within them that allowed the location of the pieces of her phylactery to be found. That's all he says, that these are the parts, these books are needed to find the other pieces, to make sure the other pieces of her phylactery are safe. And that's probably why they're missing, and probably why she wanted them, and probably is the one that took them. At this point, Chumley does pick up and says, yours is safe. And he goes, yes, I checked. They then leave to go find Ellen because they were informed about the fact of the young girl who worked for Ellen. So they now, with Lord Thomas, are marching through the halls on their way also to Ellen's office. Now, to another part of the castle, we now enter where we have KU and Angie, KU our druid and Angie our fighter, walking into Ellen's office. Now Ellen again is a short little gnomish woman, very good with numbers. She's been the right hand numerical woman for Lord Thomas through her career. They ask her, well, have you hired anybody recently? She says, yeah, I hired one of the refugees from the Empire. Lauren is her name. She's been great. She's been helping me with numbers. She's very organized, very meticulous. She's been a very big asset. I was unsure. And she's kind of praising her. She's like, well, may we see her workspace? And of course, it's a large room, but one end has the very front of it is where Ellen's desk is, and off to one side is another desk, and behind that's a door. And they point out that the door is basically a storage closet that Lauren's been living out of, and that is her desk. So they go in and inspect the desk. And as they're inspecting the desk and they're looking around, they see... I'm going to switch over to see if I can find out what you guys are saying now, because I'm thinking I get a notification. Yep, okay, cool. All right, so they are looking at Lauren's desk when Lauren actually comes back and sees a human fighter in full plate mail and a druid in her camouflage-like neutral toned regalia standing in the office talking and looking through her desk. She's carrying a tray with sandwiches and some wine on it. At this point, she then tosses the tray at KU as she starts to look at her, covering KU in sandwich makings and wine, and bolts out the door. Angie, KU, give chase. They chase her down the hallways. She is knocking people over. They're jumping over people. She's knocking carts and anything that's getting in her way. This little girl is running quickly down the hallways. They're giving chase. They manage to make it over the people and manage to not trip when they are jumping over some of the carts that are pushed out of the way and statues that are knocked over or suits of armor. I mean, it's a castle, right? They got decorations. About 5 minutes into this chase, maybe 10, they pass by a hallway. That's where Remy and Lord Thomas are coming down. So they give chase. They start following after the girl and see their two compatriots. No, they're right behind and they're following. The girl now runs up a set of staircase, trying to get around. She's knocking people over. At one point, while they're going up the stairs, she managed to find like a cart of food and shoves it down the stairs. Most of the party jumps over it, except for Lore. Lore decides to just smash the cart with his mace. So at that point, not only does it smash the cart, bashing it into pieces and wood goes flying, more food covers KU. They make their way up the rest of the staircase. They're following, she's pushed over some more people. They're jumping over her. They finally managed to catch up with her. They're about 30 feet behind her as they turn. Look, she's on the edge of one of the walls of the castle. She turns, sees them charging down the hallway after her. She starts to leap. And two thorny vines coming from Lore and from, who is our Tempest cleric, and from KU, the druid, reach out, wrapping around her legs and pulling her back. At the same time, Remy throws her two daggers at her. And I want to say at that point is where Angie then charges past. So Angie's running forward, full dash to try and grab her. You have two vines shooting past Angie and two daggers that go flying past Angie. They manage to all collide with this girl as she's being pulled back, and Angie bear hugs her. And they manage to save her by killing her. Not really. Knocked her unconscious. But you get the idea. Lord Thomas at this point has actually manages to catch up, and he runs in and total on a Mr. Miyagi style, shakes his hands, poof, lays hands on. Poof, Lauren comes back. At this point, Angie picks her up, still bear hugging her, holding her in place. They start to ask a few questions of her, but she's completely defiant. Like, who are you? Where are you working for? And she just completely shoots them down. She's heavily covered in sweat from the exertion of this, and she's just defiant to the bone. Now, finally, the guards show up. Because they're city guards and apparently need a better workout routine. They clasp her in irons and they lead Lauren away to special cells. And actually, the exact phrase was from Lord Thomas, "Take her to the silver cells." The party looks at him and says, "Anti-magic cells. Specifically for this case. With Unkek involved, we can't be too safe." Very good. They decide that they're going to look more into her, into Lauren specifically, to find out any more. They go back and talk with Ellen a bit more. They search her desk better and her living quarters, don't find out much, but they do find out that she was hanging out in the gardens a lot. Before work, after work, etc. So the party makes their way down to the gardens once more. They end up finding the head gardener, Phil, in his nice little shack inside of the gardens, kind of hidden away. He then says, "Oh yeah, I remember her. She would hang out in the arid section of the gardens. It's right over here. Let me draw a map for you." He draws a map. They follow it, and they end up coming across this through the gardens. Think of these huge botanical gardens in the center of the palace. They make their way through the action to an area that is very arid, very desert-like. So you have cactuses and succulents and other vegetation that's common to an arid climate and to a desert climate. And eventually they make their way, and they're looking around. They find this alcove with that's covered by the foliage on one side, and then this a big huge rock on the other, and then in the rock itself is carved some benches and some seats. And they notice that one section has been used a lot. The rest of it hasn't really been touched in a couple of months, but one section, one little part of the bench has been sat in a lot. So they sit in it, and specifically I want to say Solona's the one who sits in it, and she's kind of looking around like, all right, so she was sitting here, where would she? And so she eventually feels around, and this doesn't feel right. And they look down and they find a little bit of the stone is a little bit off. Picking at it, prying at it, they pull it out. And that's when the sleeping gas pops out. Now, luckily, Solona's reflexes were enough that she was able to dodge it, but it completely goes right in KU's face. Good thing she's an elf, and all she gets is a little groggy from it. Like, that was not good. Let's check for traps next time. But they pull out this little drawer, hidden area that was carved into the rock. And in it they find another leather-wrapped object that they slowly peel back. And yet it's another arcane-etched sending stone. Very similar to the one that Salona's already holding. This time Remy takes that one. She holds onto it. They feel around in there a little bit more. And this time KU is the one who actually gets in there first and notices something else in the hole, and she reaches in and yanks it out. And it's a piece of fabric, and she starts unfolding and unfolding, and it gets about 2 feet actually, so it's not very big, about 2 feet ripped up section of this very pale fabric, and she's looking at it, and it feels like it's got some magic to it, and she puts her hand into it and it disappears. And she pulls her hand out. And again, I want to say it was actually KU was actually went, oh, portable hole, just it's a little damaged and ripped up. Okay, so now they have a portable hole and they have a sending stone. So they take the sending stone, they wrap it up, and they go, okay, well, we found her stuff. Let's go back and actually talk to Lauren. They head back in, and they come back in and they start talking. They meet Lord Thomas outside of the Silver Cells, deep in the dungeons of Bereswell Point Castle. And he informs him, he seems very upset, very grave. And he says, this poor girl's been tortured. She's not well. She really believes that she's doing the right thing. But somebody has tortured this poor girl far beyond belief, and in an unspeakable way. She's been branded with an ancient tongue of the Ulog Empire. It's very bad. They decide that they're going to interrogate her in stages. First, they decided that the last person to go in is going to be Salona, and she actually asks for a little bit of help with her disguise kit and from some of the other party members to recreate some of the branding that Lord Thomas describes on Lauren on herself. They then decide that they're going to try maybe a little bit of bad cop, and then good cop kind of thing, and they're going to send in Angie and Lore. So we have the human, fighter in plate mail armor, and Lore, the Ghazi Tempest cleric, are going to walk in first and interrogate her. So they walk in and they ask a few questions, and including actually as soon as they walk in and get close, Lore just smashes on his shield, and the only time she reacts is finally when the sound hits her, and she kind of recoils from the sound, but she's been hunched over and sobbing, and just that kind of like an after cry sob is what she's got. She's kind of I want to say that they'd walked in with the idea of intimidating, but seeing this broken girl, they actually rolled better on persuasion, and they realized that they might have a better chance with this. So they lean down and get close to her, and they uncover the fact that there is they uncover that thinks that she's covering for her lady, that she was taken by her lady when she was young, and that she's here to help her lady collect the books. Let's see. I want to make sure I got this right, though. And they also find out that she has a portable hole that she was then to put the books in when she had it. And I'm going to stop. I missed a part. When they captured her, by the way, at the top of the castle before she leaves, she had a knapsack with her. And in it, she did actually have one of the books. They had the last book that she had, which was... I'm going to go all the way back up here to the city manager. No. Okay. The Devils of Medicine. She still had the copies of Devils of Medicine in the bag. So they've recovered one book. But the books she was supposed to put into the portable hole to give to her lady. Once they were put in the hole, she doesn't know what happened to them. They come out. They decide to leave. Laura and Angie leave, and they inform the rest of the party on what they learned. Salona has a few more ideas on exactly how that they should ask some more questions. She really wants to know like battle plans for Lord Thomas. She also wants to know like how they communicate. And is it the sending stones? Is there a call sign? Is there anything else that she needs to know to imitate somebody who also has been working for Unkek? So they go in. So at that point, now KU and Remy go in, and they take on totally the good, like almost like sisterly love kind of thing with her, and they convince her. They talk with her a bit more, and they're able to convince her that it's in her best interest to help them out. That her lady, while she might have helped her in the past, she really has the worst case. Like, yeah, she's offering peace by everybody dying and turning them all into her undead servants. Yeah, there'll be peace, but there'll also be no free will. By the end of the conversation with both KU and with Remy, talking back and forth with her, they do find out that the Ascending Stone is just a sending stone. There's no code words. She would once a day get a message from Unkek, or from her lady, and she would respond to it, letting her know that, or she would respond saying she'd finished her task, and she'd get some either more instructions, or she would be told some praise, hopefully from her lady. And it was once a day, one-way communication. No code, no nothing. They also find out that she was sent alone. She does not know of anybody else who's in the castle or working at Bereswell Point, but she knows that her lady has other agents. She just doesn't know who they are. She was basically a serving girl that was picked up by her. She didn't do much. Oh, and they find out about a palace surrounded by sand that she stayed in while being groomed for this mission. Taking this information out, they go out and they talk back to Salona, give her the last bit. Salona talks to one of the guards and convinces him that she's going to knock him out on the way in, and that they're going to have this kind of like she's snuck in as being captured kind of routine. So the guards swap out. The new guard walks in with her, escorts her in, and she then proceeds to solar plexus him and knock him down to the ground, and then shake off her handcuffs and turn around and say, "It's good to see you, Lauren." Lauren now is in shock, but not only was she was expecting another person to talk to her, but this person walked in and knocked a guard out in front of her and knows her name. She lifts up her shirt and shows her. They're talking for a little bit, and they actually say, "I work for her too." She's very displeased with you, and she's in shock. Wait, what do you mean? How do you know? How have you worked? She says, "I used to work for her. I've stopped. I'm probably much closer to you than you think." And so she pulls up her shirt and shows some of the branding scars across her midsection. So they go through and they show this. She ends up getting some camaraderie going with her. Unfortunately, not much new information is learned, but they do find out that she was taken, and that she really, at this point, basically pushes Lauren over the edge into joining their side, and that she's going to try and help them out any way they can. She's realized that her lady is not good, and that she needs to help the party and stop her lady from doing what she's doing. I will call it quits. It is about that time for 10 o'clock, and I told my wonderful, wonderful wife who's helping me out with this that we wouldn't stay up too late, but I also wanted a chance for anybody on the East Coast, like my family. Hi, Mom. I hope you're still watching. To be able to log in. Thank you guys for all the feedback. If you know me personally, feel free to fill it in the chat or send me a message. Again, haventhehare@gmail.com, or on Facebook for those of you friends who've already been sending me feedback and advice. I really do appreciate it. It's hard to see with the other side of this camera and know how to make it all work. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week. Oh yeah, tagline: may you make all of life's saving throws. And now we find the end screen.